But fortunately for me, we have two very nice people also from India. We were on stage, on different stage today, and accepted to last minute, so it's really not fair for them. I hope you will be gentle to come with us, because we have at 5:02, we are waiting for also another panel, and we wanted also to discuss a bit about India. It was a goal to have Mr. Kapoor here, because I don't know if you are aware, but just India is not anymore an emerging market. I hear many times people speaking of India like that, but it's just a country with more than what, 1.2, 1.3 people? I always forget the number.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, yeah.
and it's just a country where last year the government said just overnight, okay, let's say that 87% of the bills you have in your pocket are no more value, and let's begin to work digital and so on. So, and if you add to that that 93% of the population has a biometric identity, you just see that contrast compared to where. So we have a chat with two really interesting people. I will let them present themselves. You have one expert on fintech, international expert on fintech, specifically working in India, which is Aditya, and you have Yashish, which is a CEO of a very huge fintech. It's not anymore the small guys, but I will let you introduce yourself. Please, Yashish, and then Aditya, introduce yourself.
So I run a company called Bazaar, which essentially does online insurance. And we are more than 50% of the market in India. But you know, I think the two big disruptive things that happened in India, one was November last year, when the Prime Minister announced that you know, certain notes were going out of circulation. And that was a large part of the cash that people were holding. There's a large black economy in India. And a lot of people were very challenged. People with truckloads of cash were very challenged. They made a lot of noise.
What exactly happened? I mean, overnight you said, these bills, no more value.
In fact, what people know is that many people in the cabinet also did not know it was going to be announced. So it kept very, very secret. And I think it was a big move. He was trying to attack corruption in a big way. I think the second big thing that has happened is you know, what you would call biometric authentication. So 93% of Indians have biometric authentication now, and that has all happened within 12 months. It was a big problem, people walking in through porous countries, et cetera, you know, whole lot of issues. Issues stay, but you know, no other country in the world has implemented so quickly at that kind of cost. So the cost of this biometric authentication implementation, which so far is largely tamper-proof, is less than 5p per customer or per Indian. And I think that is that kind of tells you what awaits us in terms of fintech. So I think authentication and payments is largely going to be backstacked by the government and will be available for free for pretty much everybody.
Ready to present yourself?
A.Khurjekar. I run a company called MEDICI. Some of you might know us as Let's Talk Payments. And we have been in this world of fintech before it was attractive to call it fintech. So we started the journey with Money 2020 as one of the founders of that, and then we have really focused on giving structure and organization to the world of fintech, right? We have taken a lot of effort to develop the taxonomy for fintech globally, and we cover innovations and innovators, 11,000 of them on the platform now, all over the world. India is a particular focus for us, and for a couple of reasons, right? I think like Yashish said, the government has taken an initiative to invest in the infrastructure that allows the standard of innovation to be higher for everybody. And we believe in this. We believe that innovation in fintech is going to happen in a collaborative way. You know, if you want to have impact at scale from all of the technology enablement that is going into financial services, top-down and bottom-up, collaboration is required. And India is a perfect example of that, right? Having that top-down infrastructure investment allows you to create these specific use cases which will come from niche experiences, point experiences that startups can now focus on. And so then it's a happy marriage. That's what we're seeing in India.
Question to both of you, I mean, answer as you want. Following this November announcement where suddenly most of the cash disappeared from one night, let's say aside the logistic problem, but Did you see in the coming months a direct impact on new payment services? On, for example, I remember that a few years ago, most of Indians didn't have credit cards or debit cards or whatever. But I assume with less cash in circulation, perhaps you have a speedier way of digitalization of payment. Did you see this kind of thing appearing?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about this, right, some of the very first digital wallet patents were filed in 1993. But it took demonetization in India for companies like Paytm, which had existed for 5 years prior, to start seeing the tremendous adoption in weeks after demonetization. And now you're able to make a 60 rupee loan to a vegetable seller on a sidewalk. 60 rupees is $1 US or less than that. You can afford to make that micro payment or that micro loan with a digital wallet completely cashless. Why? Because the government making a policy change spurs and catalyzes the market. Absolutely, we saw.
So it was a big catalyst. I mean, suddenly.
Tremendous catalyst. But Yashish can tell you more.
I think a couple of things happened around the same time, right? Demonetization, Aadhaar, which is this biometric authentication, and then you had the largest possible launch of mobile data by Jio Mobile, by this company called Reliance, which essentially gave data for free to all Indians for a long period of time, which essentially saw Indians forget about how they were using data, and really, data became the cheapest resource out there, much below marginal cost for a while, and now the company is also making profits, so it seems to be sustainable as well. Now, what that suddenly did, these 2-3 combinations suddenly got all Indians to be on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Google. So guess what's next? Obviously, WhatsApp payments, Google payments, Paytm, etc. would come in. So I don't think the number of credit cards will ever grow beyond a certain number, because credit cards will become meaningless.
It's old.
I think it's dead on arrival. There are 25 million credit cards in India. That's it, right? So it's dead on arrival. WhatsApp, the moment it launches peer-to-peer payment, the whole of India will be on peer-to-peer payment. Whether we like it or not, every Indian will have a button, because all of us do have bank accounts at the end of it, the state bank accounts, etc., but those have been linked. So I'll tell you exactly how this payments UPI works, right? So I go on a mobile app, and a lot of you would wonder how this is even possible. So I go on this mobile app, which is a government app. It just asks me to authenticate my mobile number. I authenticate my mobile number, and lo and behold, I have my 3-4 bank accounts which are linked to that mobile number available to me right away. And because it's a government stack and fully controlled, so imagine the power of that. Now and I can make a 1 rupee payment to anybody, exactly as you said. By the way, those $1 loans have got a 10% per day return of capital. So that's how, village, whatever, these street sellers, what they would do is they will take the 60 rupees and in the evening give you back 70 rupees to the money lender and keep the rest for themselves. So that's a 15% this thing. It's uneconomical to do it at scale at a low cost, but the moment you have wallets, and by the way, they do make their payments back. So it's not like collection is a big issue, because they have to come the next day again to sell vegetables.
And so you are speaking a lot about the government push, but all the private actors, they are a very competitive market, I assume. You have plenty of actors. Last time I did a study on India, it was 1 year ago, I found, 100 wallets. I mean, Aditya, I think you did a study on that. Oh.
Yeah. Look, we have 11,000 fintech startups globally, 55 sectors. Of those, roughly 1,400 are in India, covering both fintech and insurtech. And if you ask me, almost 40% of those, I would call them in the well-funded category. Okay, so you have a very healthy ecosystem. Some VCs and investors complain that the government has made it harder for their startups to be innovative. But hey, tough luck, deal with it. If you are competing with the government, so what? Right? Now, everybody has to be a little bit better.
Because 3 or 4 years ago, there was a new regulation in India to have lighter agreement, like light banks and so on. But I didn't see many applicants at the end.
I think that notion of having some guardrails, I think the emerging markets have shown us the way. I mean, even before India, look at Kenya, Uganda, they had better guardrails for what mobile payment can and cannot do, okay? And we, in the US even, we still haven't learned that what is it that you can and cannot do. When you have some simple guardrails, innovation goes faster. Countries like India have shown of that.
I think capital is very, very easily available in India. Extremely easily available in India, far more. So I was operating in Europe before that. I keep close connects here. It is much easier for a startup of a similar quality to raise capital in India compared to Europe. And that's just a fact, right? That's just a statement of fact, probably about 10 times easier. Companies that are moderately successful have the opposite problem. How do you refuse so many investors? Because one person famously said there are about 200 stocks in India which are being chased by all the money in the world, like pretty much, right? Whether it's American money, Japanese money, Chinese money, everybody wants to invest in India. It seems to be that one destination where people want to invest, but there are actually very few scalable, credible opportunities out there. So, yeah, it's a tough situation from an investment perspective. But yes, you would see some scaled up operations coming through, and the people who do succeed will give the returns that would make up for a lot of losses in a lot of other startups. So winners will become very big. There is a lot of scale in the market. There's no doubt about that.
Sorry for a silly question, but I don't really know India regulation. This morning we had on stage on your market Lemonade and Trove, and they explained that developing an insurtech in the United States is like developing 50 countries, 50 states, 50 regulation. I don't know India. The same regulation for your kind of business and payment and so on the full of India, or you have different regulation by states inside India?
No, you have one regulation for the entire country, but the regulation can be very intrusive at times, specifically in the insurance sector. However, if you take a medium-term approach, then India is moving from a rules-based regulation to a concept-based regulation. So eventually they're moving to whatever is right will become law, and the laws will be implemented, rather than this is the rule, so just follow it. And I think that will take another 2-3 years, as long as the current government wins the next election and all that stuff. So it's a large democracy, and it can always go in the reverse direction very quickly.
Two last questions about these biometrics things. We speak a lot about that in Europe, biometrics and so on. You told us you did it very quickly in India. I assume there were also debate. No? I mean, it's not only the cost question. Not everybody wants to be identified by biometric and so on. I mean,
in India, the only person who doesn't want to be identified is the guy who's frauding tax. So
yeah,
otherwise,
the same here. But let's say we speak more, perhaps. I don't know.
I know. Europe, I think, is fairly evolved in that. So well before we had demonetization, there were already 19 million people who had given their bank information on Paytm. At that time, Paytm was not a large organization. They had given their actual bank credit cards, passwords, everything to Paytm. Imagine if. So I'm not. That's one wallet. So I think Indians by nature are quite trusting and open and not very focused on personal data. Most of the noise you hear would come from, so you've got multiple people who will have, so I would have 3-4 names, Y.Dahiya, Dahiya, Yashish.D, paying different taxes. So different identities of the people, and those people are suddenly crying foul. That, hey, I'm going to be identified. Otherwise, you're always identified. You're paying your taxes. You have to be identified. Like, how can you not be identified?
Let me just share, just so that the audience understand what we're talking about, right? A couple of years ago, I went to India, and it is cheaper to buy a SIM card in India from a carrier in India than is roaming, obviously. I go to the Airtel store, okay? I show my Aadhaar card, and the person at the counter has a tablet with a biometric sensor attached to as a dongle, okay? Completely paperless transaction, real-time authentication with my fingerprint, goes to government servers, authenticated, I get my SIM card in literally 2.5 minutes. No paper, no form, beautiful.
I think the convenience.
That's the power.
Yeah, I think the Indians are willing to give up personal data for convenience. Is the general, that's the average Indian. There are a few who are more vocal, but if you just deep dive a little bit, you will find there is a particular tax reason or something evasive that they're trying to do for 90% of them. Otherwise, nobody has the time to make noise.
Allow me to invite you next year when we will do a big panel on GDPR impact. We won't do that today. Just to finish, one question, because it should have been a panel on Yes Bank, and I know you work with Yes Bank, and they are doing a big discussion here. I've been doing 2 days about cooperation. I think the word which came back the most was cooperation. All banks work with fintech, fintech works together, they work with banks, blah, blah, blah. How is it in India? I mean, is it the same kind, very open, very cooperative, or still fighting, please?
No, I think the collaboration is something that, just like everything else, even that India leapfrogged in. Because if you ask me, where are we today in fintech? Fintech 1.0 was when in 2008, the tech companies found the vacuum of the banks and built new experiences. Fintech 2.0, when the bank said, oh, elephants can also dance, we can also do innovation. Fintech 3.0 is collaboration. And I think India, you are seeing that already. You know, every major progressive bank is investing, just like Yes Bank, in working with the startup ecosystem in a very open and embracing way. So absolutely, we are seeing it today.
So I had operated in Europe before I operated in India. I can definitely vouch. Some of the things that I have seen happening in India from large insurance companies' perspective has surprised me in terms of how open they are to collaboration. I had, like for example, I had operated in France, and it took me forever to get the business off the ground because insurers just wouldn't tie up, etc. Too many hang-ups, right? India, I am seeing companies should have the same hang-ups if I look at it from a French perspective, but they're not having them. And that's kind of surprising to me. But there's a lot more collaboration going on than I would have imagined.
Thank you so much for this improvisation. You can applause my friend.